Did you?
I don't want to bore the oilam with long and complicated terrors.
Or you went down to it because you wanted to talk.
I want to bring something out very interesting in Kuda that we.
My father lived in the city, so
I think it's I think it's appropriate for the Yom Tov for sure. It's very interesting. Very interesting Zach. I think there's something there's something miyuchad about the Yom Tov Shavuos that we have to try to tap into. We have to try to understand. The Torah brings very, very famous Torah that without getting into the lumdus of it, but that
maybe we should get into the lumdus.
We should. Pesach is Keneged Avram, Shavuos is Keneged Yitzchak, and Sukkot is Keneged Yaakov.
One more time.
Again, Avram is Keneged Pesach, because that's the birth of Klal Yisrael.
This is in the Torah.
This is in the Torah.
Wow.
And
it's a very Chassidish word.
The Chassidim got it from him. Fine. So what is it about Shavuos that has to do with Yitzchak Avinu? Look, we don't think about this, but what's the pshat? So the Torah brings us. The Torah's halacha sefer, yeah. It's a rishon halacha sefer. So it's very interesting. So what's the lumdus over here? What's the Torah?
I'll drive you back.
What's the Teichen of the Baruch? So I was thinking like this. We don't know much from all the others. The one that we know the least about is Yitzchak Avinu. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Okay, Shlav 2. Second thing that we have to keep in mind. Very, very interesting to Zach. We know that Klal Yisrael was in Mitzrayim, and it's gebracht from the Arizal, and maybe from earlier that the Dibur was in Golus. When Klal Yisrael was in Mitzrayim, the Dibur was in Golus. If you look in the Psukim, you can be medayik in the Psukim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu heard the Na'akas b'nei Yisrael. A Na'aka is like a scream. They Labdavka used words. They krecht a lot. They groaned a lot. The Dibur, they didn't have the Yechelis to speak properly. Now, obviously, Shavuos they got to Torah, so that's going to give them some Yechelis to bring them into the realm of Dibur. And you have to work from, it's very interesting, we know that on Pesach we bring a carbon oimer, which is a animal food, which is barley, to the extent that there are achreinim that learn that you shouldn't use matzah made out of barley because it's animal food, and we're higher than that. And we work our way up through the days of the Yemei HaSfira, to the avoid of the Yemei HaSfira, to get to Shavuos, which is when they're makriv the shtei alechem in the Beis HaMikdash, which is chametz, which is a lechem of humans, of people. So, and part of the it's brought down that from the Balei Musar that every day of Sfira you learn one of the Memches Kinyan of Shatar Niknas Behem, and then on the last day you chazah them over, or however you're supposed to do that. But then, yeah. But what's very interesting is that the Vilna Goyen in Mishlei says on the pasuk Eishes Chayil. So Chayil is gematria Memches. So Eishes Chayil Miyimtze. How is it shaykh to find somebody that has all the Memches Kinyan of Shatar Niknas Behem?
Meaning a wife?
It's referring to the Torah.
Okay.
So how's it shaykh to find a person that has all the Kinyani al Torah properly? It's not really right. Right. So there's many terutzim to this, but that's an idea. Now, one of the things that we all know is that we learn Pirkei Avos in this kufa between Pesach and Shavuos, and I think a Mishnah that we're more or less all familiar with is that the Tana says, I don't find anything better for the guf than shtika. Shtika is a very interesting zak. Why? Because most of the time when it's quiet, it's awkward. And it's like strange. It's not comfortable. When it's quiet, it's very nakishmak. So, but he says, that's the best thing for you. When I was growing up, my mother had a sign in the kitchen in the shape of a fish that said on it, even a fish would keep himself out of trouble if he kept his mouth closed. And we know from the Svarim state that fish don't talk. Fish don't have the Koach HaDibur b'chlal. They could communicate, but they don't have a Koach HaDibur. It's not interesting. Now, there's a famous Yerushalmi that Rishon Bar Yochai said, if I would have been by Matan Torah, I would have asked HaKadosh Baruch Hu to give us two mouths. One mouth for Ruchnias, one mouth for Gashmias. But then he said, what kind of foolish thing is that? Because L'maisa, we have one mouth and we get ourselves in so much trouble. So it would be much better if we would only have one. Because if you have two mouths, if Koach HaDibur times two, it'd be a little too powerful. It'd be too much to be solved. It'd be a shtickle problematic. Okay, fine. As I state in Yerushalmi. So I was thinking like this. I want to put it all together like this. Because it says like this. It says, when Klal Yisrael left Mitzrayim, says that they came to the Yamsuf. Again, so they came to Mitzrayim. Pshat is that they're not really holding on the Madrig of Torah yet. They just left Mitzrayim a couple of days ago, right? They're holding Shvisal Pesach. So they have the Mitzrayim behind them, they have the Yam in front of them, the desert on both sides, and they're going bananas because they don't have an eight, they don't know where to go. So what do? So they say, we could daven. And by davening we'll be able to. So the pasuk says, Hashem yilochem lechem va'atem tacharishon, you'll be quiet. What? Do we ever hear of a time when tefillah is not appropriate? Well, tefillah should be appropriate. But they're in a shrek lechatzara. Right now is the best time to daven. But I think the answer, I just brought this with me to share this thing. It says Hashem yilochem lechem va'atem tacharishon. Tacharishon is a lashon of shtika. A cherish is a person who can't talk and can't hear. So he's totally missing the concept of dibur b'chlal. So, but there's a Rashi in Shir Hashirim that says a very, very fascinating thing that I think drives the point home very, very stark. The pasuk says, "Di misich rayosi." Shtika. That's what the pasuk says. Di misich rayosi. Di misich is a lashon of quiet. Rayosi. So before we get to this Rashi, I just want to point out one thing. There's a mention of Shir Hashirim that says that when a person gets to know somebody, right? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu talks to Klal Yisrael on the first shlav that HaKadosh Baruch Hu talks to Klal Yisrael. Lo yizaz menchava adre karabiti. HaKadosh Baruch Hu refers to Klal Yisrael as my daughter. Then the next shlav is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You get to know them more. HaKadosh Baruch Hu refers to Klal Yisrael as achoisi, as my sister. And then the next thing is until HaKadosh Baruch Hu refers to Klal Yisrael as imi, my mother. So without getting into the whole Torah, without getting into the whole Arichas, this is based on a Kliyakar. The Kliyakar says that the Pesach, which is the birth of Klal Yisrael, is Biti. Klal Yisrael is the daughter of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When it comes to Shavuos, that's Keneged Yitzchak Avinu. That's Achoisi. So I want to focus on that Nakuda. What does Achoisi got to do with Shavuos? What does Achoisi got to do with that? But this Rashi and Shir Hashirim is going to explain this whole union to us. I think it seems very good. So again, the pasuk says in Shir Hashirim, it's Parak Aleph pasuk Tes, Di misich rayosi shtikosecha shtikoscha mitzakosecha. You were quiet from your screaming. Shenemar va'atam tacharishon. And you were quiet. Zoyis re'isi b'sifrei Haggadah. I saw this brought in the Sifrei Haggadah. That's what Rashi says. Davar acher di misich rayosi. Sham heresi lakol sharayosi at. At that moment, when Klal Yisrael was surrounded with the Yam in front of them, the Mitzrayim behind them, and the desert on both sides of them, that's when HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to them, "Now I know you're truly mine." What does this mean? Shamishu doit v'reya ein tzarich ledaber. A person who's a true friend and truly loves somebody, you don't have to talk to them. There's inherent love, there's inherent understanding that I know what's on your mind, I know what's on your heart, even without talking to you. You're able to sit in perfect silence, Lizman Orach, for a long time. The Hainu Rashi is saying that it's not awkward.
Wow.
Right? So I want to title it. I have a chance to speak for 1 more minute.
You're
I feel like this.
I just got excited for a second.
We know that what HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us on Shavuos was in the form of Aseret HaDibros, which is lashon of dibur. Now we know that they heard the first Klal Yisrael heard the first two dibros from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Paruch and Nishmasam. What happened? What was Paruch and Nishmasam? What was the idea? We know that a neshama, every neshama is a chelik l'kamimah, right? It's a piece of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's dibur. The neshama came into us. V'yipach b'apav nishmaschayim is from the breath of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Man the navach midilei navach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu breathed the neshama into us from himself. That's where the chelik l'kamimah comes from. That's what our neshamas are. That's the mitzvahs of who we are. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu was talking to us by Har Sinai, so the Gemara says that they died. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu's dibur connected with our neshama on such a level, bringing it back to its original state of our neshama being up there, coming from before the matzav of Yipach Bab and Nishmat, in the original state of what the neshama was supposed to be. So I think that's why the pasuk in Tilim in Hallel says le'amesim yahalu kavah loy kol yardei duma. Duma is also lashon of quiet. A mace has no life is very quiet. But there's two types of quiet. There's two types of shtika. There's the shtika that we have that Chazal and the Svarim will speak by Binyamin. The stone on Binyamin, the stone for Binyamin on the Chayshon was Yeshpeh, was Yashpeh. Yashpeh means Yeshpeh, which means that he had the Yechelis to talk, but he didn't. He was able to control himself. When there's I want to say that even in the higher level of shtika, it seems from the Rashi and Jashirim that there's really two levels of shtika. There's a shtika where you're able to control yourself and you don't have to say anything and you're okay with that. But then there's another level of shtika, like Rashi says, you're a doid and a reya, and it's inherently understood that even if you're not talking, you're able to sit together lizman aruch and you understand each other. And I think it's very appropriate for the Yom Tov of Shavuos that the Gemara says that the Gemara darshans a pasuk Eretz Yar v'Shakata, that the land saw, was afraid, and was quiet. I know from the measures that the animals, they teach in kindergarten, the birds didn't chirp and the cows didn't moo, and on, and they have all kinds of nice Torahs about it and all kinds of nice songs about it. But what's the Emek Advarim? What's the Pshat? Pshat is that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving the Torah to Klal, so the whole world becomes B'Shubah to the Torah. The whole world is now in a sense of this Doid and the Reya to support Klal Yisrael as being the Mekabel HaTorah. So there's no need for them to talk. The entire world supports that love that Klal Yisrael has for HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Torah. And that's and Mamela is Keneged Yitzchak. Why? Because Yitzchak is that person, Yitzchak is Keneged a Chaysi. When you have a relationship with a sibling, it's very different. You have a relationship with your parent, there's certain things. You want to tell them, you're not comfortable, you should tell them. You tell your brother everything. You tell your sister everything. But many things they can understand even without you telling them. Parents also, but I think the siblings is even more than that. There's Rabbi Kalish says over a Maral all the time that I heard from probably Muna once that a brother is Chatzi Gufay. He had a sprach. I heard from Muna once. But that's meaning that there's inherent understanding that there's nothing awkward about you being yourself. There's nothing awkward about you being together with somebody else. But if it's only dafka if it's on this madrega of doid v'reya, like Rashi said in Shishim. I think that's I think that the entire world was tapping into this yisoid, into this idea that there was no need to be talking. It wasn't just a pshat. Oh, like the Rebbe's talking, the rabbi's talking. Everyone be quiet. I don't even get to what it was at all. I think it was a pshat that there was such a once HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Torah to Klal Yisrael, it was so the Klal Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu were so comfortable with each other, like the Medrash says that it was at the point that they were called Achoisi. And what's very interesting is that if you pay attention to Rashi says there was a time on them when they were by the Yam Suf that they you don't have to daven because I understand you, right? So even if at that point they didn't get, even Klal Yisrael didn't get it yet, but by Matan Torah they zichik got it. I mean that's the spitz of what Matan Torah is, that it's this inherent understanding of the relationship between Klal Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like a sister, like Medrash says, like a chaysi. I think that's a very nice thought about Yom Tov Shavuos.
Wow.
Can I say the right time?
Shkoyach everyone for being quiet and listening.
That was very deep. We're going to have to do chazara on that.
Yeah,
Please,
we need
anytime.
Can I say quick the right time?
First we need a negative and then we can...
No.
Should we say Lulei Sarascha again?
No.
You know the Skeleta Lulei Sarascha?
Teach it to us.
Oh my God! I was literally going to say Lulei Sarascha after my right time. So I'll just do a quick I'll say this about Torah quickly since you guys are letting me say it. Because I know they want to about Torah. It's not for me, it's for me. The mystery. Listen. Quick. Trust me. It says in the mystery of